सरस्वती गोस्वामी ठाकुर महाराज की मंत्र कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम स्वभाव श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की श्री वृंदावन धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की Galdamaya ki, Chapanamaya ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Tulsi Devi ki, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada. The translation to this song. The song was written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only body by which he is your. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace will we cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord from the ecstatic primitiveness. My human ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing on his character. Our spiritual master is the friend of the poor and Lord of the devotees. Give us the shade of our feet.
Spread all over the three worlds.
We take
Shelter under his feet.
His divine grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Jai. Hello. Good morning.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for 299. One photos. Yeah, photos. Thank you. Thank you. 299. Hare Krishna devotees in the temple and online.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Humble obeisance, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, thank you for attending this morning. Start this. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Giri Valadari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Manachari Yamuna Tira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Acharya Stotastata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajak Acharya Stotastata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Anatakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Vidas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees Hari Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hari Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Also,
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Prachali Nirvishisha Nivadi Paschati Dishitani. Hare Krishna. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2. No, sorry. Yeah, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Verse 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, we'll chant the Sanskrit of the verse. Hasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita. Sandarshayama Shaparam Najatparam. Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimosvadasham. Svadrishtavadbhir Purushair Abhishtutam. Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita. Sandarshayama Shaparam Najatparam. Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimohasatvasham. Svadrishtavadbhir Purushair Abhishtutam. Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita. Sandharshayam Ashaparam Najatparam. Vyapeta Sanklesha Vimohasadvasham. Svadrishtavadbhir Purushair Abhishtutam. Devotees in the temple, please.
Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita. Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita. Sandarshayam Asaparam Nayatparam. Sandarshayam Asaparam Nayatparam. Yogasanklesha Vimohasadvasam.
Sanklesha Vimohasadvasam.
Svadrishtavadbhir Purushair Abhishtutam.
Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Sabhajita.
Sandarshayama shaparam nayatparam.
Sandarshayama shaparam najatparam.
Yape sanklesha vimoha sadhasam.
Yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasham.
Adrishtavadir purushya abhishtitam.
Svadvishtavadir purushaya avishtutam.
Svalokam Bhagavan Savajita
Tasmai salokam bhagavan sabhajita.
Sandarshanam Asa Param Nayatparam
Sandarshayama shaparam nayatparam.
Yapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sanvasam
Yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasham.
Swadristavadir Purusher Avushtitam
Svadvishtavadir purushaya avishtutam.
Tasmai Svalokam Bhagavan Savajita Sandarshanam Asa Param Nayatparam Yapeta Sanklesha Vimoha Sanvasam
Anyone online?
तस्मै स्वलोकं भगवान् सभाजितः
Tasmai svalokam bhagavan sabhajita.
सन्दर्शयम् आश परं न यत्परम्
Sandarshayama shaparam najatparam.
व्यपेतसङ्क्लेश विमोहसद्वशम्
Yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasham.
स्वदृष्टावद्भिर्पुरुषैरभिष्टुतम् स्वादिष्ट
Svadhishtavadir purushaya avishtutam.
हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Tasmai swalokam bhagavan sabhajitaha.
Tasmai svalokam bhagavan
Svajita
Sandarshayama ashvaram nayat param.
Sandarshanam Asa Param Nayatparam
Vyapeta sanklesha vimoha sadhvasam.
Yapeta sanklesha vimoha sadvasham.
Swadhishtvaadhivir purusher abhishtutam.
Svadhishtavadir purushaya avishtutam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Word for word. Tasmai, unto him. Svalokam, his own planet or abode. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead.
Personality of God
Sabhajita, being pleased by the penance of Brahma.
being pleased by the penance of Brahma
Sandarshayam Asha,
Sandarshanam
manifested. Param, the supreme. Na, not. Yat, of which. Param, further supreme. Vyapeta, completely given up. Sanklesh, 5 kinds of material afflictions.
5 kinds of material afflictions.
Vimoha,
You know,
without illusion.
not avoiding
Sadvasham, fear of material existence.
fearing
Svadrishta vadbhi,
but this never
by those who have perfectly realized the self. Purusai, by persons. Abhishtutang, worshipped by. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead, being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma, was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikunta, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all the self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fears of illusory existence. The troubles of penance accepted by Lord Brahma were certainly in the line of devotional service, bhakti. Otherwise, there was no chance that Vaikunta, or Svalokam, the Lord's personal abodes, would become visible to Brahmaji. The personal abodes of the Lord, known as Vaikuntas, are never mythical nor material, as conceived by the impersonalists. But realization of the transcendental abodes of the Lord is possible only through devotional service, and thus the devotees enter into such abodes. There is undoubtedly trouble in executing penance, but the trouble accepted in executing bhakti yoga is transcendental happiness from the very beginning. Whereas the trouble of penance in other processes of self-realization, jnana yoga, etc., without any Vaikunta realization, ends in trouble only and nothing more. There is no profit in biting husks without grains. Similarly, there is no profit in executing troublesome penances without other than bhakti yoga for self-realization. Executing bhakti yoga is exactly like sitting on the lotus sprouted out of the abdomen of the transcendental personality of Godhead, for Lord Brahma was seated there. Brahmaji was able to please the Lord, and the Lord was also pleased to show Brahmaji his personal abode. Srila Jiva Goswami, in the comments of his Krama Sandarbha annotation of Srimad Bhagavatam, cites quotations from the Garga Upanishad, Vedic evidence. It is said that Yajna Valkya described the transcendental abode of the Lord to Gargi, and that the abode of the Lord is situated above the highest planet of the universe, namely Brahmalok. This abode of the Lord, although described in revealed scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, remains only a myth for the less intelligent class of men with a poor fund of knowledge. Herein, the word svadrishta vadbi is very significant. One who has actually realized his self realizes the transcendental form of oneself. Impersonal realization of self and the supreme is not complete because it is just an opposite conception of material personalities. The personality of Godhead and the personalities of devotees of the Lord are all transcendental. They do not have material bodies. The material body is overcast with 5 kinds of miserable conditions, namely ignorance, material conception, attachment, hatred, and absorption. As long as one is overwhelmed by these 5 kinds of material miseries, there is no question of entering into the Vaikuntha lokas. The impersonal conception of oneself is just the negation of material personality and is far from the positive existence of personal form. The personal forms of the transcendental abode will be explained in the following verses. Brahmaji also described the highest planet of the Vaikuntha Loka as Goloka Vrindavan, where the Lord resides as a cowherd boy, keeping transcendental Sarabi cows and surrounded by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Chintamani prakara sadma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu sarabi abhipadyanatam lakshmi sahasra satasamrat asijramanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Brahma Samhita 529. The statement of the Bhagavad Gita, Yad Gatvana Vitarta Nivartante Tadham Paramama, is also confirmed herewith. Param means transcendental Brahman. Therefore, the abode of the Lord is also Brahman, non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is known as Vaikuntha, and his abode is also known as Vaikuntha. Such Vaikuntha realization and worship can be made possible by transcendental form and sense. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before beginning, I would like to ask for blessings and permissions from all the devotees in attendance and throughout the universe so that I may speak something in line with the parampara and please Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Hare Krishna. I'll read the verse one more time. What do we have here? The personality of Godhead being thus very much satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma was pleased to manifest his personal abode, Vaikuntha, the supreme planet above all others. This transcendental abode of the Lord is adored by all self-realized persons, freed from all kinds of miseries and fear of illusory existence. So we get to the heart of the matter. The personality of Godhead is satisfied with the penance of Lord Brahma. Penance. Another way it's said in Sanskrit is tapo, austerity or penance, similar. But there's some interesting points here that we'll cover in the purport in relation to this penance and some fun analogies and things we can discuss around this. So the way that we are directed to think about life in our current civilization, society, is that the pursuit of happiness is the ultimate goal of life. Our Declaration of Independence establishes this as an inalienable right, that we as all people have the right to pursue happiness, and that goal will give us what is our birthright. And that in the process of that, somehow we will actually find that happiness. And the direction about that happiness in the modern world is that somehow we will find some enjoyment in our sense gratification, in our families, in our work, in what we can acquire in our houses, in our land, in our children. Yet somehow we find, as we look at our own lives, and if we look at society at large, that promise of happiness seems to fall short. People are constantly seeking for something outside of themselves, and they're ending up dissatisfied. And in many cases, the majority of cases, they don't know where to look to find the happiness that they're seeking. And what we understand from the Vedic scriptures, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and from the Bhagavad Gita, that although the happiness that we're seeking, that we're indoctrinated with and told that is outside of ourselves, is a function of who we really are. The jiva, the qualities of the jiva, Sat Chit Ananda, eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. So why is it that if we're full of bliss and full of knowledge, for the most part, we're so dissatisfied? It's an interesting question. And so many people are trying to speculate the solution. But here we have the solution directly from the source. What is the source? The source is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, God. And in this particular part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have God, Krishna, speaking to the first created living entity who actually arose out of the abdomen of Krishna on the stem of a lotus. A lotus petal grew out of the abdomen of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And from there, the first created being manifested. Pretty far out. I mean, if you go into the educated circles of the world and try to explain that, they have it all figured out, of course. They know how it all started. There was a bang, an explosion, and then we have life. An explosion created order. How that works, we don't really understand, but hey, it's accepted. But we actually don't accept that. We understand that it was created and it was manifested. And so in this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have Lord Brahma actually, Krishna he's revealing himself to Lord Brahma. And he's revealing not only himself, but his abode, his home, where he resides. Where he resides is called Vaikunta. Another understanding of Vaikunta, or not an understanding, but a translation of Vaikunta, is the place without anxiety. So here we have so much anxiety, but in the spiritual world with Krishna, there's no anxiety. So it is being described, and now we're understanding how is it that the Supreme Personality of Godhead revealed his abode to Lord Brahma. What is it that he did? What is it that Lord Brahma did? He performed, what did he do? Penance, tapas, austerity, penance, for what is described as thousands of years in the years of the demigod, which is a really long time beyond what we can even conceive of in terms of the amount of time that he performed these penances. But there's an important factor in relation to penances. Penance means to undergo some kind of trouble, some kind of difficulty voluntarily. We're always undergoing the three types of different miseries that are coming from the material world, from outside of ourselves, from inside our own mind, and from the natural kind of disasters that are happening that we have no control over. So we're experiencing all types of miseries all of the time, but to actually undergo voluntary difficulties, that's penance. Now, this is what is described here, which is the opposite of what we are told to be the goal of life. So the goal of life is that this body, well, the goal of life that we're told is that this body is to enjoy. This human body is to find happiness and enjoy in this body. But what is described here is that the goal of life and what what will allow us to actually enjoy, what will get us to the point of actual happiness, is undergoing voluntary difficulties. This is a revolutionary statement in and of itself. This is a revolutionary concept. And this is the answer to society's problems. It is the basic, fundamental, principle, philosophical fact, truth of reality that, if understood and actually realized within our hearts, can provide the solutions to the problems that we have in our own life and in the larger society. And that is to voluntarily undergo difficulties in our life, but there's a main ingredient that is required, as described in the purport. Does anyone remember what the main ingredient in the penance and difficulties that we would undergo, that Brahma underwent, was? The main ingredient. Yes. Bhakti. What is bhakti? Devotion. To who? To the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to Krishna. And it's described that, look, so many penances are being accepted by human society. So many voluntary difficulties start from the earliest age. My kids, they don't want to go to school. They get up, they don't want to go. But they go. They're forced to go. But at some point they choose, this is what I have to do. We think we have to do this. We have to do this difficult thing. I have to go to school and then I have to get a job. And it's very difficult. We're voluntarily choosing to do this. But how this is described in this purport, how is it described? Like, does anyone remember how it's described?
It's like beating a husk without grain.
Yes. How many online or here have ever beat grains to get husks off? Even those of us who've come from India, they have maybe a chance possibly of having done this, I think. But in America, I don't think that, I mean, maybe that was done 200 years ago. And so I looked this up. It's very interesting. So grains, you know, they have this little like paper kind of husk that is on the outside of it. And to get the grain out of the husk, you have to the way I saw it is like a big like mortar and pestle, like a big pot, and they have it like a stick and they like break it up. And then the little flakes come off of the grains. And then you can take the grains and then it's left over. The stuff is left over. And that's the husk. Of course, in the world today, we don't have any, everything's done by machines. But actually, this was a major part of life. This was what the people did. This is what you're in your house, you're milking cows, you're taking care of your family life. Everyone is, doing what they have to do. They're getting a workout, breaking up the grains, getting the grains, doing what they need to do. Simple life. This is what is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam as how human life actually should be conducted. Not with what's described as ugra karma that we have now. Ugra karma, unnecessary necessities, big machines, big factories to beat the husks, and ultimately all of this being used up on these big factories with all of this energy, creating so much problem in the world. Subsidized by the future generations, of course. We're taking it all up, making it easy for ourselves, and then in 2 generations they have nothing, and they have to ultimately go back to the way it was, but they don't have the knowledge of it anymore, so they'll have to struggle so long. Anyways, so we can understand that they're beating the husks. So what is the analogy here for us to understand? That by performing austerities, performing penances that aren't connected to bhakti yoga, that we are putting out the effort without getting the result. Who wants to put out the effort without the result? No. No one wants that. If we're going to put out the effort, we got to at least have a vision that the result can come. So in what we're hearing and seeing here is that actually, like, this is our direction and our guidance. So we're going to have to endure penance and difficulties in this life one way or the other. And if we do it with bhakti yoga, if we do it with devotion, then what will happen? Just as Lord Brahma, just like that, for us, the Supreme Lord will manifest himself before us. And not only will he manifest himself, but he'll manifest his abode, Vaikuntha. And if we get a chance, hopefully, we'll read just in the third canto, there's a few verses that are very nice that describe the actual, what it's like there. Of course, the Brahma Samhita is a description of Brahma's realization of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this is described in this verse a bit. So what we understand is that from this verse, from this purport, that actually the purpose of life is to perform austerities. And those austerities have to have the basis and the ingredient of bhakti yoga to have any real value. There's a verse, what is it? Okay, it's called the Shrama Eva Hi Kevalam. It's basically useless labor. Srimad Bhagavatam 128. The occupational activities of a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. So the same thing, putting out effort, putting out difficulties so that we can actually attain the higher abode of Krishna and connect in that way. Now, there's another verse here that is probably one of my favorite verses. It's somewhat that discusses penance and austerity, and it's from the 5th canto, 5:1:1, and I'll just read it very quickly. Actually, no, it's 5:5:1, 5:5:1. This is Lord Rishabdev. Lord Rishabdev was an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. It goes like this. Lord Rishabdev told his sons, "My dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for the dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified. And when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever." The word here in Sanskrit in this is called tapodivyam, which is, so tapodivyam, divyam is divine. So divine austerity, tapodivyam. That's the type of austerity that we should be undergoing, divine austerity. Not working hard day and night like the hogs and dogs. Doesn't mean we don't work. We're still working. But it's not so much about what we're doing, but the consciousness in which we do it. So this is a very important point. So I'll say it again. It's not so much about what we're doing, but the consciousness in which we do it. And the consciousness is Krishna consciousness. So how do we attain that Krishna consciousness? Well, also as it's described in this purport that we have for today, actually, bhakti yoga is joyful. So even the fortunate position that we have, even this divine penance, this divine tapo divyam, in Kali Yuga, underneath the shelter of the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and this sampradaya that we are in, we have this opportunity to have a joyous difficulty. What is the difficulty? Prabhupada used to always say this. What is the difficulty? Chant, dance, take prasadam, chant Hare Krishna, associate with devotees. This is the practical activity. We do our work if we have to work in the world with a consciousness of Krishna. But the point is that we're taking austerities for Krishna, but in this Kali Yuga, we're taking them in a very simple and easy and joyous way. As opposed to what we would have to do in other ages, thousands of years. Look at Lord Brahma was sitting there for millions of years in the calculations of our time, undergoing meditation and penance. And in this way, now the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, here we have the Hare Krishna mantra, Sankirtan, Prasadam, association with devotees. So we're in a very fortunate situation to be able to put us in a position to what? To reach that abode, that spiritual abode. And that spiritual abode, as described here, Chintamani, Prakarasad, Masukalpa, Vriksha, these are, I'm just going to read the actual verse in English of what that particular, so that's from the Brahma Samhita 529, right? So the translation of that is this. Ready? I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. Govinda, he's tending the cows. I'll just read the purport to this because why not? It's very, very wonderful. Srila Prabhupada's purport to this particular verse. By the word Chintamani is meant transcendental gem. Just as Maya builds this mundane universe with the 5 material elements, so the spiritual potency has built the spiritual world of transcendental gems. The Chintamani, which serves as material in the building of the abode of the Supreme Lord of Goloka, is a far rarer and more agreeable entity than the philosopher's stone. The purpose tree yields only the fruit of piety, wealth, fulfillment of desire, and liberation. But the purpose trees in the abode of Krishna bestow innumerable fruits in the shape of checkered divine love. Kamadhenus, cows yielding the fulfillment of desire, give milk when they are milked. But the Kamadhenus of Goloka pour forth oceans of milk in the shape of the fountain of love, showering transcendental bliss that does away with the hunger and thirst of all pure devotees. The word Laksha and Sahasrashata signify endless numbers. The word Sambrama or Sadraba indicates being saturated with love. Here, Lakshmi denotes Gopi. Adipurusha means he who is the primeval Lord. So we get a little glimpse here of what the spiritual world is. Transcendental gems, Chintamani, cows that are not just milking milk, but milking the desires of the devotees. It's hard for us to imagine this in our conditioned, contaminated state. Also, that is as is described here in this purport by Srila Prabhupada, that the material body is overcast with 5 kinds of miserable conditions. What are those 5 types of miserable conditions? Anyone remember?
Ignorance.
Yeah. Ignorance, attachment, absorption. Yeah. Oh, well, hatred. I guess you could say it. Hatred, anger. And material conception. Ignorance, material conception, attachment, hatred, and absorption. And what does he say? As long as one is overwhelmed by these 5 kinds of material miseries, there is no question of entering into the Vaikuntha Lokas. So our goal at this point is to overcome this contamination that we have of this overcast. So to do that, we have to rework our consciousness and decontaminate, purify our hearts. And this is a gradual process because we have lifetimes and lifetimes of this accumulation of all of this overcast. But just like the overcast of the sun with the clouds, we have an overcast day. We can imagine what this is like. As those clouds pass, the sun shines through and brightens everything. And in the same way, as we purify our hearts, we get glimpses of the sun, which is Krishna coming through the overcast contamination of our hearts. So this is what this higher taste that we experience, which keeps us coming back to Krishna consciousness. Now we get this taste. But what we've experienced, at least for myself, I can't say from what the full experience is like, but I can say that from the descriptions that I understand of those who have attained it by following the process, that we have this wonderful goal that can motivate us and inspire us to stay on the path in the difficulties that we're facing when we are currently in this overcast of these 5 types of miserable conditions. And of course, it's also described here that we want to be careful of falling into the trap of the impersonal conception of oneself, or of course, the impersonal conception of the Lord. So this is another kind of underpinning framework of the material kind of conception of life, is this impersonal thinking about the world, the universe, and our own selves, where we can either merge into this kind of, we're just going to merge back into the impersonal void of nothingness. Or the world is just a big void, that, the universe is just a big, full of empty space. And it's full of dark matter. And we are the only little beings in this tiny little planet. And when it's done, it's over with, and then it's going to blow up. The sun is going to explode, and then that's it. My daughter came home and told me the other day from school, they said they told me that the sun is going to blow up in like 7 million years. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. How do they know that? But I'm thinking to myself, wow, like that's pretty cold to think. Because actually from the Vedic understanding, yes, there are cycles of creation and destruction. But to just lay that on a child at an early age, I remember them telling me that in school as well. And thinking like, wow, that's a far way away, like, but still. Because, okay, yes, with the cycle of creation and destruction, but without the understanding that there is something eternal, there is something that supersedes that creation and destruction. It's very dark. This is the impersonalism. This is like that kind of pervades everything. It's veiled, of course, in the modern world as science and all of these other things. But in actuality, like there's no understanding of the real personal nature of Krishna and the variegated nature of the supreme abode. I mean, it's described, I don't really think we have time for it, but it's described as the Vaikuntha is so, everything is alive. From the grass to everything, the trees, everything is spiritually potent. And there's so much, everything is different. Variegatedness, yet connected through the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all of when we attain that spiritual abode, which is being shown to Lord Brahma in this, started to being expressed to Lord Brahma through his penance in this verse, we can take our natural position with Krishna as a servant of Krishna, because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is the enjoyer. We are not the enjoyer. Krishna is the enjoyer. He's also our best friend or well-wisher. We can understand that. Then the whole shift of our consciousness we can actually start to move towards happiness in life. So there's a lot in this purport. I mean, so much here. And I just kind of touched the surface of a couple of topics here. But if there's any questions or objections or ideas or thoughts around what I've said so far, feel free to, yes.
One thing that caught my mind in the purport was he said that, the trouble we go to in the material world to attain happiness, it's trouble.
Yeah.
But the trouble we go to in devotional service is transcendental happiness. So like in the trouble is happiness.
Yes.
In devotional service.
Yes, very nice. Exactly.
Also, when you're, just this verse from the Bhagavad Gita keeps coming up as an analogy in my mind whenever someone brings up these ideas like in all these little endeavors in material life, like looking for happiness here, there, anywhere. All these little things we do to try to be happy and at peace. That verse, all purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Like all these little endeavors are we're like digging up all these little wells everywhere. When there's really just this massive reservoir of water in Krishna that can facilitate the needs of all these little tiny endeavors that we're making.
Right.
Going to the trouble. And that reservoir will give us no trouble.
Yes. Jai. That's right. It's like watering the root of the tree to get it to everything. It's a very nice realization, Prabhu. Jai. Hare Krishna. Yes, Dronacharya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this class.
Thank you.
On this topic of austerity, it's been a carried theme over the last couple of verses. On Tuesday, we had a nice discussion about it. And since then, I've been giving a lot of thought to this topic of austerity. It's been helpful for me in understanding devotional life deeper. Many years ago, I remember one time it was snowing out, there was snow on the ground, and in order to throw the trash out, there was an exit. This was all like the backyard before they built the temple, and there was an exit door. It was breezeway, and you could walk out to the dumpster, and people would leave their shoes right there. And I was taking the trash out, and I was in a rush out there. I went outside in my bare feet and walking in the snow in my bare feet, and then I came back, and the devotee said to me, he says, "There's so much suffering in this material world, you don't have to bring it extra upon yourself." And then as I reflected on that, I remember, like, what was I trying to do? Trying to get maybe some cheap adoration. Or somebody say, "Oh wow, you're really austere. Oh wow, you can do that. I could never do something like that." And then all of a sudden I can feel, proud or special about myself. But this is like sometimes what happens with austerity when it's disconnected from devotional service. And we see this sometimes when devotees, they take on maybe physical challenges in substitution for devotional absorption.
Hmm.
Purushottam Mass is coming up, so I'm gonna do these crazy fasts or something like that. But as a result of that, I'm not able to actually perform service. You know, I can't come to the temple because I'm just too yeah. Or like, you know, I'm gonna do like a near draw fast on the Ekadasi, but that'll prevent me from actually chanting more, which is the recommendation, you know, is to absorb yourself. So sometimes it's easier to do these physical things as opposed to the absorption. Now, if you can do both, you know, obviously there's some benefit to it, but especially at the beginning stages of devotion, in a speculative way, we kind of think like, oh, I can do some physical feat and that will attract Krishna. Maybe get some glorification personally along the way. But as you said, it's like you're beating as Srila Prabhupada said in the purport, you're beating the husk without getting anything out of it, because the devotional process, you're substituting devotion for something that is external and material. And then my realization over the week on this was that the austerity is that we don't interrupt our service, despite the difficulties that come, despite the inconveniences that come, uninterrupted, unmotivated service. So it may be due to an uncomfortable circumstance, inconvenient circumstance. It may be due to something mentally going on in our minds where we're feeling some disconnect, or how do we stay true and stay consistent and not let that interrupt us? And that's like the austerity of being to withstand these temptations, being of the mind to tell us, oh, you don't have to do that. Oh, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, so-and-so is not doing it, so why should I have to do it? And all these things that the mind can cause. How do we able to withstand those and still remain on the devotional path? So that was like when I was thinking about austerity, like for us, that is, we're not being asked to do these, physical feats but we're asked to remain diligent in our commitment to devotional service.
Yes, which is much harder, said than done. I mean, much harder done than said. I don't know, but it's difficult because we're afflicted by so many things, right, in the mind, told in so many ways. Although I've heard Prabhupada say this, like, it's like we need to have like willpower, strength. Like spiritual life is very important. Like that willpower and the ability to remain strong, not be weak. Was in Atlanta with, I think his name is Trivikram Swami. Trivikram, is that the right way to say it? He was an original Prabhupada disciple, like back in the early 60s, mid 60s. He's one of the original. He's a sannyasi now. And he was in Atlanta. He was giving us a class with the brahmacharis, like just a few of us. And he was talking about how Srila Prabhupada used to talk to them. And he would say to them, don't be weak, be strong.
Yeah, he says in one purport in the 15th chapter that weakness of heart is our biggest impediment.
Yeah. They said, be strong. Not puffed up, strong, lifting weight something, but don't fall victim to the mind. Be strong against it.
I'm actually starting to see like the voice in my head anytime I like hear myself talking to myself, and like that's delusion.
Yeah.
I just like cut it off. It's delusion.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful aspects of coming to Krishna consciousness and japa and gaining control over the mind in that sense. We can get disassociated from that voice in the mind, which is, I've also had that experience. So it's, what is the austerity worth pursuing? Harinam Sankirtan. I mean, that's the way, that's the austerity, you know? Taking prasadam, coming to the temple. Also, maintaining one's consciousness towards thinking of Krishna. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, coming to the classes. To whatever degree that is an austerity, you know, this is what's worth doing. Performing our jobs in society so that we can maintain some level of, you know, donations to the temple and, you know, piece of stability in our life so that we can, you know, maintain our health and whatnot. We're not stressed out, overburdened because we, you know, owe some money to someone or something like that. Keeping life relatively simple in that regard.
It's infecting that everyone living in the material world, we go from so much austerity, you know, without accepting that everything. And it's just to wake up early, drive your car, all these austerity you do for materially, for spiritually, you know, like we have to wake up and try to chant our mind and try to fix our mind on the what we need. And just try to do something, you know, that we don't like to do. Like even listening to Bhagavatam, our mind tell you, okay, do something else, you know, but nowadays we just, you know, like if we just follow all this spiritual, like regularly chanting our 16 round and waking up, you know, early and performing some devotional service, even we don't like it sometimes, you know, we want to do something else. You know, that this kind of austerity that will bring us closer to Krishna, to Bhakti Yoga.
Yes, yeah.
It's the austerity that's liberating.
Yes.
That austerity is fine.
That's tapodivyam. Divine austerity, tapodivyam, as opposed to shrama eva hi kevalam, which is useless labor.
And then austerity is just to be in association of devotees. Sometimes we don't like each other. We still need to cooperate with each other, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that was Prabhupada. He said, your love will be shown how you. Yeah.
Think like about it, just we do for whom we're doing this service for.
Right.
We're not doing for that person, we're doing Krishna Prabhupada, for Krishna to please Krishna.
Yes. For those online, Mataji was saying to remember who we're doing these things for, and trying to cooperate itself is an austerity inside of the movement of Srila Prabhupada's movement. And so, yes, I believe Srila Prabhupada said, your love will be shown for me in how you cooperate with each other, pushing this movement forward. So this is a very heavy austerity in Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. They're infected, overcast with these things.
And we have so much resentment for other devotees because we don't like the way you're doing, especially not engagement.
Yeah. But then if we,
A big austerity for the match.
yes,
And really like bow down to this devotee and tolerate all these.
yes,
conditions down to their
Thank-
service.
thankless tasks. Yes. And I mean, we have trouble in this devotee society, what to speak of a material society. There's no, it's dog eat dog, cutthroat. So we get a little glimpse of, in devotee society, we can actually, I mean, there's so much more here than out there in terms of finding actual happiness and depth with our relationships with people, other devotees.
Here, you can always remember that it's like no matter what resentments or anything you have towards someone in the community, you can always remember, oh, this is a servant Christian. And I'm a servant Christian. So you always have that. And that's from the heart, you know? So you can connect to their heart right away, just by remembering them, you know? And that's the deepest connection. You know?
Yes. Jai. Hare Krishna, would anyone from the online audience like to say anything before we close out?
Yes, yes, Prabhu. What the 5 miseries you said?
Hare Krishna.
One is Hare Krishna. The miseries, you said at the end of the class, 5 kind of miseries,
Yes.
which
The
we
5
encounter every single day.
Yes. Those are ignorance, material conception, attachment, hatred, and absorption.
Ignorance, attachment,
Ignorance, attachment, material conception, hatred, and absorption.
absorption. Okay, thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. And just the word in the verse that is 5 kinds of material afflictions is called sanklesh.
Oh, Sanklesh.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good, very good, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Thank you, Kaivalya Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Thank you. Vancha kalpa tripya
Prabhesha kripa sindhu bhya cha patita nam pavane Vaishnavebhyo namo namah.
Namaha. Devotee Vaishnava.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.